Have you ever walked away from a conversation replaying every word in your mind, realizing hours later that someone subtly controlled your emotions? Maybe they made you feel guilty for setting a boundary. Maybe they provoked you until you reacted, then used your reaction against you. Or perhaps they smiled while quietly convincing you to doubt yourself. Most people believe manipulation is loud. It isn't. The most dangerous manipulation is silent. It happens through your emotions, through your need to be understood, through your desire to be liked, through your fear of losing someone. The moment another person can predict your emotional response, they already possess the blueprint to control you. Machiavelli understood something that most people never realize. Power does not belong to the strongest person. It belongs to the person who cannot be emotionally moved against their own interests. Imagine becoming so emotionally disciplined that insults lose their sting, praise no longer blinds you, guilt no longer traps you, and fear no longer dictates your decisions. Imagine becoming impossible to manipulate because nothing inside you can be pulled like a string. Before we begin, type this affirmation in the comments. My mind belongs to me. That single sentence is more than a comment. It is a declaration that your emotions will no longer be borrowed by other people. Because today, you're about to learn why becoming cold doesn't mean becoming heartless. It means becoming free. And once you understand this difference, no one will ever manipulate you the same way again. Every manipulation begins with a simple question that most people never hear. What controls this person's decisions? Manipulators are not magicians. They are observers. They watch your face when you are criticized. They notice how quickly you answer messages. They see how uncomfortable you become with silence. They learn what you fear losing and what you desperately want to gain. The moment they identify that emotional trigger, they no longer have to force you. They simply pull the right string. If your greatest fear is rejection, they threaten distance. If you crave approval, they offer praise only when you obey. If you cannot tolerate being misunderstood, they intentionally misinterpret your words until you exhaust yourself explaining. Notice something. They are never controlling your hands. They are controlling your emotions. And your emotions control your actions. Machiavelli understood that every ruler who could not govern himself would eventually be governed by someone else. The battlefield may have changed, but human nature has not. Today, kingdoms are replaced by conversations, relationships, workplaces, and social circles. Yet, the same principle survives. The person who owns your emotional reactions quietly owns your choices. This is why becoming cold has nothing to do with suppressing feelings. It means refusing to let your feelings become someone else's steering wheel. When someone insults you, they are testing whether your identity depends on their opinion. When they ignore you, they are testing whether silence controls your peace. When they flatter you, they are testing whether praise clouds your judgment. Most people fail every one of these tests because they react automatically. But powerful people create a pause. Inside that pause lies freedom. Because once emotion no longer dictates your next move, manipulation begins to fail. Machiavelli repeatedly showed that dependence weakens even the strongest ruler. The same truth governs everyday life. The person who desperately needs attention becomes easy to ignore. The person who desperately needs love becomes easy to exploit. The person who desperately needs approval becomes easy to command. Manipulation feeds on dependency. This is why emotionally independent people seem mysterious. They are difficult to influence because they are not negotiating from desperation. Think about how many decisions people make simply because they fear losing someone. They stay in disrespectful relationships. They tolerate betrayal. They accept lies. They apologize for things that were never their fault. Not because they are weak, because they fear being alone more than being controlled. The manipulator recognizes this immediately. They don't need to threaten you. They simply remind you what you might lose. And you surrender voluntarily. True emotional coldness is the opposite. It says, I appreciate people, but I do not depend on them for my identity. That mindset cannot be bribed with compliments. It cannot be intimidated by rejection. It cannot be rushed by fear. Ironically, the less you need to control outcomes, the more control you naturally possess. People sense emotional stability. They stop trying to push your buttons because nothing happens. The game becomes boring. Manipulators always abandon people they cannot influence. Become that person. Most people believe power comes from saying the perfect thing. Machiavelli would disagree. Power often comes from saying nothing. Silence creates uncertainty. And uncertainty makes manipulative people uncomfortable. Have you noticed how someone who wants control often keeps talking until you respond emotionally? They ask loaded questions. They repeat accusations. They provoke. They exaggerate. Not because they seek truth, because they seek a reaction. Your reaction becomes information. Every angry word tells them where your insecurities live. Every defensive explanation reveals your fears. Every emotional outburst gives them another map of your mind. Silence denies them that map. When you refuse to explain yourself endlessly, they lose data. When you answer briefly instead of emotionally, they lose momentum. When you smile instead of arguing, they lose confidence. Silence forces manipulators to reveal themselves. Unable to control you, they often become frustrated. Suddenly they talk more. They contradict themselves. They expose intentions they meant to hide. The calm person always sees more because they are busy observing instead of reacting. Coldness is observation, not isolation. The quieter your emotions become, the louder other people's true character becomes. One of the greatest tricks manipulation plays is convincing you that every challenge deserves your attention. Someone insults you. You answer. Someone spreads gossip. You defend yourself. Someone questions your worth. You launch into a speech proving your value. Without realizing it, your entire life becomes a series of reactions. Machiavelli understood that strategy is choosing which battles never deserve to be fought. Every response costs energy. Every unnecessary argument steals focus. Every emotional conflict distracts you from your larger purpose. Powerful people understand something simple. Winning every argument often means losing your peace. Manipulators love people who cannot walk away. They know those people will spend hours defending themselves while accomplishing nothing. The emotionally cold person asks only one question. Will responding improve my future? If the answer is no, they remain silent. Not because they cannot fight, because they choose where their energy creates results. Self-control is invisible strength. The strongest mind is rarely the loudest one. Predictable people are easy to influence because they unknowingly provide everyone around them with a map of their inner world. They react the same way to criticism, chase the same compliments, reveal every frustration the moment it appears, and announce every plan before it has a chance to succeed. Over time, people no longer need to guess how they will respond. They already know. And once your reactions become predictable, they become exploitable. Machiavelli understood that uncertainty is a form of power. A ruler whose next move could not be anticipated forced rivals to hesitate, and hesitation often determined the outcome before the battle even began. The same principle applies today. When people cannot predict your emotional response, they lose confidence in their ability to control the situation. They become cautious because every tactic that once worked suddenly produces nothing. This does not mean becoming dishonest or pretending to be someone you are not. It means becoming disciplined enough to keep your emotions from becoming public property. You do not need to share every opinion the moment it forms. You do not need to announce every goal before it is achieved. You do not need to explain every decision to people who have not earned the right to understand it. The strongest plans often grow in silence, protected from unnecessary judgment and interference. Observe how many people speak simply because silence makes them uncomfortable. They fill every pause with explanations, reveal personal details to strangers, and defend themselves before anyone has even accused them. In doing so, they hand others valuable information about their fears, insecurities, ambitions, and desires. A skilled manipulator listens far more than he speaks, because information is leverage. Every unnecessary confession becomes another thread that can be pulled later. The disciplined person reverses this dynamic. Instead of rushing to be understood, he studies the people around him. He notices who becomes impatient when they cannot read him. He notices who tries different emotional tactics to provoke a reaction. Some offer excessive praise, others create guilt. Some attempt intimidation, while others manufacture urgency. But when every attempt is met with the same calm presence, their strategies begin to collapse. There is also a difference between secrecy and mystery. Secrecy is driven by fear of exposure. Mystery is the natural result of self-control. You are not hiding your life. You are simply refusing to broadcast every thought, every emotion, and every intention. Your confidence no longer depends on constant expression. It comes from knowing that not every truth needs an audience. The less emotional information people collect about you, the more carefully they must approach you. They cannot predict what will offend you because you are not easily offended. They cannot flatter you into poor decisions because your judgment is not for sale. They cannot pressure you with deadlines because you refuse to confuse urgency with importance. One by one, the usual methods of influence stop producing results. Eventually, something remarkable happens. People stop trying to manipulate you, not because they have become better, but because they have learned that your mind is no longer available for negotiation. They discover that every button they once pressed has disappeared. And when no one can read your next emotional move, no one can confidently control it. That quiet unpredictability becomes one of the strongest forms of protection you will ever possess. One of the greatest misunderstandings about emotional strength is the belief that detachment means becoming cold, uncaring, or incapable of love. It does not. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the refusal to let feelings overthrow your judgment. There is a profound difference between having emotions and being ruled by them. Most people never discover that difference, and because of it, they spend their lives being pulled in directions they never intended to go. Manipulators rely on emotional excess. They know that when your fear is stronger than your reason, you will make desperate decisions. When your anger is stronger than your patience, you will reveal your weaknesses. When your desire for approval outweighs your self-respect, you will sacrifice your principles just to keep someone close. They do not need to force you into bad choices. They simply wait until your emotions do it for them. A detached mind cannot be rushed. It does not mistake urgency for importance or attention for affection. It understands that not every message deserves an immediate reply, not every accusation deserves a defense, and not every invitation deserves acceptance. It creates space between stimulus and response, and within that space lies freedom. The person who can pause before reacting has already broken the cycle that manipulators depend upon. This does not mean you stop caring about people. On the contrary, genuine detachment allows you to care more honestly because your kindness is no longer driven by fear of rejection or the need for validation. You help because you choose to, not because you feel obligated. You love because it aligns with your values, not because you are terrified of being alone. You forgive because bitterness is heavy, but you do not forget the lessons that experience has taught you. Machiavelli recognized that judgment becomes clouded when desire grows stronger than wisdom. Whether that desire is for power, affection, recognition, or revenge, it creates blind spots that others can exploit. The disciplined person acknowledges every emotion, but places none of them on the throne. Logic remains the ruler, while emotion becomes an advisor instead of a king. There is also a quiet confidence that comes with healthy detachment. You no longer panic when someone walks away, because you know your worth was never dependent on their presence. You no longer chase every opportunity because you trust that the right ones do not require you to abandon your dignity. You no longer feel compelled to explain every decision because your peace is more valuable than winning approval from people committed to misunderstanding you. Ironically, the more emotionally balanced you become, the more authentic your relationships grow. The people who valued control over connection begin to disappear, while those who respect your boundaries remain. Your circle may become smaller, but it becomes stronger. And that is the hidden reward of detachment. It does not isolate you from the world. It protects you from becoming a prisoner of it. When your heart feels deeply, but your mind leads confidently, you become someone who cannot be manipulated, because every decision is guided by wisdom instead of emotional impulse. The world teaches you that victory is measured by the people you defeat, the arguments you win, or the status you accumulate. Yet, Machiavelli understood a far more difficult conquest, the conquest of yourself. Anyone can overpower another person under the right circumstances. Very few can remain composed when insulted, patient when provoked, or disciplined when temptation whispers louder than reason. That is where true power begins. The greatest enemy you will ever face is not standing across from you. It lives inside every impulsive reaction, every fear of rejection, every desperate need for validation, and every habit of seeking approval from people who have done nothing to earn your trust. If those forces rule your decisions, then your life is no longer your own. You may believe you are choosing freely, while in reality, your emotions are quietly making every decision for you. Imagine waking up without the need to prove yourself to anyone. Imagine hearing criticism without immediately becoming defensive. Imagine watching someone attempt to provoke you, only to realize they have no access to your mind because you refuse to hand them the keys. That level of composure cannot be faked. It is earned through countless moments of choosing discipline over impulse. Most people think strength is explosive. Real strength is silent. It is the ability to pause before speaking, to observe before acting, and to remain calm while others surrender to chaos. The person who governs his inner world becomes unpredictable to everyone else, because his actions are guided by principle instead of emotion. He cannot be baited into pointless conflicts or manipulated by guilt, praise, fear, or pressure. Ironically, the moment you stop trying to control everyone around you is the moment you gain control over yourself. And that inner mastery changes everything. Manipulators lose interest because they receive no reaction. Enemies become frustrated because their attacks produce no weakness. Even your allies begin to trust your judgment because they see consistency instead of emotional instability. Your greatest victory will never be visible to the crowd. It happens quietly, inside your own mind. Every time you choose reason over reaction, patience over anger, and purpose over pride. Once you achieve that victory, no external opponent can truly defeat you, because the one battle that matters has already been won. Becoming cold is not about shutting the world out. It is about refusing to let the world dictate who you become. There will always be people who test your patience, question your worth, flatter you for their own benefit, or provoke you simply to see if they can control your emotions. You cannot eliminate those people from existence, but you can eliminate the influence they have over your mind. That is where real freedom begins. Remember, manipulation only succeeds when it finds an open door. That door is often fear, insecurity, loneliness, pride, or the desperate need for approval. The moment you begin strengthening those weak points instead of hiding them, you become increasingly difficult to influence. Others may still attempt to push your buttons, but eventually they discover there are no buttons left to press. Machiavelli understood that the strongest position is never one built on emotion alone. It is built on discipline, patience, observation, and self-command. A calm mind notices what an emotional mind overlooks. While others rush into conflict, you remain still. While others seek validation, you build competence. While others obsess over appearances, you quietly strengthen your character. Over time, this difference becomes impossible to ignore. People begin to respect the person they cannot provoke, cannot rush, and cannot intimidate. Do not mistake this path for an easy one. Every day will present opportunities to react impulsively. Someone will insult you. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will try to make you feel guilty for protecting your peace. In those moments, remember that your greatest victory is not proving them wrong. It is proving to yourself that your mind is no longer controlled by outside forces. The person who masters himself walks through life differently. He does not chase approval because he already knows his value. He does not fear rejection because his identity is not borrowed from others. He does not waste energy on every argument because he understands that attention is too valuable to spend carelessly. His silence carries confidence, his patience creates strength, and his discipline becomes a shield that manipulation cannot penetrate. So from this day forward, make a quiet decision that no one else needs to hear. Decide that your emotions will serve your purpose instead of your impulses. Decide that your peace is worth protecting. Decide that your mind is no longer available to anyone seeking to control it. And if you are ready to leave manipulation behind for good, write this affirmation in the comments. My mind is calm. My will is unbreakable. No one controls me. Read those words whenever life tries to pull you back into old habits. Let them become more than a sentence. Let them become the standard by which you live, because the day you truly govern yourself is the day no one else can govern you.